Let's make a super fun card today. I will be making a card perfect for the season and I will combine lots and lots of fun techniques. So I'm starting by die cutting a panel. This is a white panel that I deliberately cut it to be slightly smaller than the standard card. And I'm going to use one of the dies from the latest release by Waffle Flower. And this is the Snowy Hills die, which is going to provide the perfect background for any winter card. So if you use this die on a 4¼ by 5½ panel, all of those cutouts are going to stay together. I don't know if you can see, there are notches actually, so you can create that outline of the cutting without all those different areas separate from each other. However, I'm working on a smaller panel, so the cutting was all the way to the edge and I end up with different parts, which is exactly what I want because now I can create some layers and depth on my card by elevating each one of these layers with foam tape. So first, before I put everything together and create my layers, I'm going to add a little bit of inking. You see this is a snow slope along with trees, so I will be using the matching stencil just on top of those trees, which is going to help me create the scene. Now, of course, if I haven't separated all those different areas, I could have done the inking in one go for all the trees. But anyways, I just want to add dimension so I can sacrifice some time just to create exactly what I want. Now for the trees, I started with a lighter green color and at the very bottom, I'm inking up with a darker shade just to add some dimension. This is going to look very nice once I peel off the stencil. And you can see the look here. So I will repeat the same process for the other trees. And remember, when you are peeling off the paper, it's better to do it upside down so that you make sure that all your pieces are not curled up and they're going to stay nice and flat. Now, for all the ink pads, I don't have another inking tool. What I do is just wipe off what is left from the darker shade and I will just go ahead and do the inking with the lighter color. So what you really need in terms of ink blending tools is one tool per color family. So I can use this one for all the shades of green. And I get a lot of questions about my blending tools. No matter which type of blending tool it is, I never ever wash them. I just use them as they are. I have been crafting for years and they are just fine. Don't worry about it at all. All you need to do is just wipe off a little bit what is left from the previous inking on a paper towel. So I'm going to complete all the trees, same technique for this one as well. And then I can go ahead and work on my sky. So you see I do have one layer which is supposed to be the sky, the far back of all my layers. And for that I'm going with shades of blue. Now in the matching stencils there is an area just for the sky. Of course that would be very helpful if you were working on one continuous panel. However, since I have the layers separate, I don't really need to do that. And now you can see that I'm switching into using two colors here. So it's always nice to combine a couple of colors in your ink blending just because it makes everything look more interesting and not so flat. And now for the focal point, I'm going to go with one of those two cats which are making snow angels. I think that this is going to look adorable. And can you think of something cuter than a cat making snow angels? Or maybe a dog. So if you're a dog person or a cat person, you can see there are sets for that, which you can definitely use. And then there is this stencil which is going to give you the snow marks on top of the snow where you can place the cat or the dog on top. Now what I need to do is to put all those layers for the background together, and I'm starting with the sky. I'm using a scrap piece of paper here, a white panel, that I'm going to use as the base where I can stick on top all those layers. Now there are 4 different layers. For each one of those layers I'm going to use foam tape, and every time I'm sticking the next layer I'm going to add an extra layer of foam tape. So I started with the sky, which is with glue, completely flat. Then for the second layer I went with one foam tape at the back. Then for the third layer I doubled up, and then I went all the way to 3 layers at the back of foam tape. So each one is slightly pronounced against the previous one. And the foam tape that I'm using is quite thin, so don't think that this is going to be super thick. It still fits inside an envelope. So now let's work on the focal point. I'm going to die cut my cut and then just add a little bit of inking. I'm starting with yellow, and there is a stencil to add all the extra details that I went with an orange color for that. Now here is where I realized that there are those paws that you can add on your snow as an extra detail. That was an afterthought. I didn't realize it was there, so I would have liked to do that inking beforehand. And now you see I'm working without even using masking tape or anything, but everything worked just fine. Anyway, I would suggest to do this before you put all the layers together, because that was on top of a foam tape and it wasn't very sturdy. So now that's where you can stick the cut, but I had this idea to make it even more fun. These wobbles have 2 sides that you can peel off the backing, and they are sticky, both of them. One of them is plastic and difficult to cut out, and the other one is very thin and transparent. You're supposed to add the transparent one on top of your card, and the thick part goes behind your element. However, it is really difficult to cut with your scissors, so I just went the other side around, and this way I was able to cut out a little bit of the extra to make sure that it fits behind my cut. So the other side is also sticky of this spring, so I am going to align it on top of my stenciling, press it down, and the card is going to stay in place, and it's moving, which makes the card interactive and super adorable and fun. And you can definitely do the same thing. Instead of a cat, you can use the dog. For this design there is a small stamp set that gives you many sentiments that match this idea, and I decided to go with Let It Snow. I'm going to stamp and cut it with the matching die. I'm going to stick that down, and then what's left to do is to add a little bit of snow on a snowy scene. So for that you can either go with pearls, with sequins, you can stick them all over the place, or if you're like me and you want to have that more organic look, I am going to add some white splattering. This is going to allow all the little splatters to fall completely randomly, which is the look that I love. And then with my contour liner, I can add some dimension on some of the splatters, which is going to make the card even more special. I placed this panel on top of a standard card that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and you can see I ended up having a little bit of a border, and it is absolutely adorable. Plus, it's interactive, which I'm sure it's going to brighten someone's day. So that was the project for today. I hope that you had fun, that you got inspired. Links to everything you see as well as coupons can be found down below in the description. Thank you all so much for joining me, and I'll see you all next time.